Citing a long and varied list of crimes against humanity, including trafficking in saturated fats and cholesterol, soliciting funny flavors in the refrigerator, and breaking in saucers. A petition has been filed with this court requesting that the defendant be eradicated from our cuisine and replaced with margarine and other various oils. Now, since no one has offered any testimony as to why this fat should remain in our kitchens, I have no choice but to rule.
This trial is a mockery.
What?
That's right, Your Honor. This wholesome and versatile food, this friend who cooks everywhere, stands wrongly accused. I say that butter has been slandered by the dark agents of industry and media and maligned by the frantic fears of a fat-phobic public.
Are you a lawyer?
No, but I'm playing one on TV.
Oh, well, can you give this court one good reason why butter should exist in this age?
No. I can give dozens.
One will suffice.
Fine. Sauces.
What about sauces?
Well, Your Honor, butter is basically sauce waiting to happen.
You're talking crazy.
No, Your Honor. And I'm here to prove that I'm talking goodies.
Make your case, Counselor.
A moment.
Counselor!
Of course. Your Honor, we would not begin to bore the bench with the story of Butter's bovine beginnings, but we would like to enlighten you about the torturous trip from Guernsey to grocery.
This had better not be an attempt to churn up sympathy.
Sure, and that's a good one, Your Honor. May I present Exhibit A, torn from its mother's breast, separated, skimmed, pasteurized. The milk is now cream. Nothing more than microscopic blobs of milk fat floating in a universe of water, along with some casein, calcium, dissolved salts, that kind of thing. Some cream is even injected with bacteria.
Don't even try that bacteria defense.
Very well. Allow me to rephrase. Your Honor, butter basically comes in 3 distinct market varieties in this country. There is, for instance, Exhibit B, unsalted or sweet butter, wrapped in foil usually so that it does not go rancid. Then, of course, Exhibit C, lightly salted or sweet cream butter. Now, since the salt helps preserve it, it doesn't have to be in foil. Then, of course, there is Exhibit D, European style or lactic butter, always inoculated with bacteria.
To what end?
Well, flavor, Your Honor. See, the bacteria makes the cream that goes into the butter very, very tangy. And look at it this way. If you're gonna ingest calories from fat, you ought to make it count. Know what I'm saying?
I suppose.
May I?
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you. Now comes trial by churn. Exhibit E, please. Your Honor, now the cream's milk fat is agitated with such violence that the globules smash together, their membranes rip apart, and soon become one giant mass. Imagine, if you will, being turned inside out, because that is what this dairy must endure. Now, where once we had little globules of fat floating around in a liquid phase, we now have little droplets of water in a solid phase. Do you have some bowls, Your Honor?
Oh, yes, I have some bowls.
Very, very good. Now, that solid phase, of course, is what we call butter. But there's an awful lot of liquid left over, and that is what was traditionally called buttermilk. Well, I wouldn't drink that if I were you. It's usually used as livestock feed. Now, of course, salt is generally added to the young butter at this point, both as a preservative and, of course, for flavor.
May I?
Enjoy.
Tastes like butter.
Ah, rudimentary, but yes. Of course, commercial butters still have a long way to go. Exhibit F, please. Ah, thank you. Projection. Deposition number 1. We're here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania at the Carlisle, Pennsylvania Land O'Lakes Butter Factory. Here behind me is General Manager Bill Schreiber. We're going to find out what he knows. Mr. Schreiber, what makes great butter?
Great butter comes from great cream.
What makes great cream?
Great cream comes from great milk, and we have great milk that we supply into this facility. We have about 26 or 2,700 farmer members that supply milk to Land O'Lakes Eastern operations. We have a whole team of people that goes out and inspects these farms to make sure that they're meeting all the necessary hygiene and sanitary standards necessary to produce great milk. Once we ensure that we have high-quality milk, then what we do is we separate that milk into skim and cream. And we use a centrifugal machine to do that, and the machine spins at about 4,000 RPMs. We started with 3.5% fat in the milk, and what we end up with is cream that's about 42% fat. Then we'll pasteurize that. We pasteurize it at 190 degrees. We hold it for about 30 seconds. Then we'll take that cream and we'll cool it down to a temperature that is less than 45 degrees, and we'll put it into a cream silo. And that's where we get crystals, fat crystals.
Crystals.
Crystals, right. We want to form crystals.
Fat crystals.
We want to form fat crystals. That takes, again, about 6 to 8 hours, and those crystals will have a tendency to stick to each other. And that's what we want. That's the quality that we're after.
Sticky crystals.
Sticky crystals is where it's at.
That's a good thing for butter.
It's a good thing for butter because sticky crystals stick together, and we want as much of the fat from that silo of cream to wind up on the butter side of the equation as opposed to the buttermilk side of the equation.
I see. So what's churning really about?
Well, we have a continuous churning process, which basically means that that 42% fat cream is pumped into what's called a churning section. And in the churning section, what we do is we take cream, which is basically fat that's wrapped in water, and we put it against an abrasive surface, and we liberate the fat.
Liberate the fat.
Right. So at that point, we now have fat globules, which are essentially butter, and we have buttermilk, the buttermilk being the water phase. Now that we've made buttermilk and butter, we separate the buttermilk and butter. Once we've done that, then we take the remaining butter and we put it through what's called the working section of the churn. And this is where we really start to develop the consistency of the butter so that it resembles the butter you've come to expect when you put it on your table at home. And then we'll go into what's called a butter boat. And the butter boat is basically a wide spot in the line, if you will, prior to the time that we feed this butter into the various processing lines.
Okay, I see. So from then you just extrude it and package it into whatever form you need, right?
Really, that's it. I mean, we'll make quarter-pound sticks out of it, put it in a 1-pound box, and when you see it in the store, it's in a little yellow box or a little blue box.
Anytime during this process, do you add things to the cream or butter?
The butter?
Yeah.
No. Well, we add salt. That's part of the process. Butter has a salt content of about 1.2 to 1.4%.
No funky chemicals with strange names?
No funky chemicals,
Nothing like
just sweet cream from high-quality milk and a little bit of salt.
Lights, please. Thank you. Your Honor, the resulting butter is, by law, at least 80% butter fat. However, high-end butters go as high as 88% butter. And I might add that if Your Honor's market doesn't carry these butters, I can hook you up.
Really?
Absolutely.
Let the record show that the defense counsel tried to bribe the bench.
The remaining mass is mostly water, plus small amounts of protein, lactose, glycerides, and phospholipids, including lecithin.
Less of who?
Lecithin, an emulsifier, Your Honor, also found in egg yolks. It helps hold sauces like beurre blanc together. The point is that butter is completely natural. So natural, in fact, that it falls under the watchful eye of my first witness. The Dairy Division of the United States Department of Agriculture inspects dairies and butter production facilities to ensure wholesome product and sanitary conditions. Grades of AA, A, or B are awarded based on flavor, body color, spreadability, and salt content. AA butters are mild and smooth spreading. A-grade butters have a slightly rougher texture, while B grades crack rather than spread and tend towards a slight acidity, which some bakers seem to like. To be certain that a brand has passed government scrutiny, always look for the USDA shield and grade on the package.
And what about margarine?
Margarine is a manufactured product, sir, and therefore outside my jurisdiction.
If butter is so carefully grated, then how come I pulled a stick out of my fridge a few weeks ago that tasted like yak back?
Sir, I wouldn't try to pin that one on the federal government.
Whose fault is it?
The distributors, the markets, maybe even yours, Your Honor. You see, nothing matters more to my client than freshness. If mishandled on the road or in the store or in the home, even top-grade butter will oxidize.
Oxidize?
Exactly. The butter fat reacts with the oxygen either from the air or in the water inside the butter itself to create butyric acid. That leads to rancidity, and rancidity tastes like
Yak back.
old wet yak back, to be exact. This is why, Your Honor, so many manufacturers choose to wrap their unsalted butter in foil to keep the air out.
What about the salted?
As long as you've got a little salt in the mixture, the reaction can't happen. You don't have to wrap it in foil. Of course, if Your Honor's really interested in butter freshness, well, allow me to introduce Defense Exhibit G, a 1-pound box of butter. You'll notice, Your Honor, that there is a date embossed on the bottom of this box. Do you see that, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. You'll notice that that date is almost always 4 months from the actual day the butter was made. Now, this is how you can tell if you're getting really fresh butter. Just look at the date, subtract 4 months, and you'll know the day that it was made. Of course, I wouldn't push it much beyond this date, even if I were to freeze it.
You can't freeze butter.
You can freeze butter, Your Honor. I do it all the time. As a matter of fact, I only keep 1 stick in the refrigerator. Everything else is in a zip-top bag in the freezer.
That's all well and good. But what are you going to do about this sauce defense?
How about magic?
Beurre Blanc, or white butter, comes as close to culinary magic as you can get. Start weaving the spell by adding 1 large or 2 small shallots, chopped fine, to a pan.
What exactly is this shallot?
Well, structurally, it's like, well, imagine if an onion and a head of garlic got together and got married and had a kid.
Is that legal?
The kid would be a shallot. They're made up of cloves, like garlic, but each one is formed from concentric leaves, like an onion.
And what about flavor?
Well, shallots are more aromatic than either of their parents, and they won't play havoc with your breath. So, add 8 ounces of white wine and 2 ounces of lemon juice to the shallots and put the whole thing over high heat.
This mixture sounds suspiciously acidic.
Well, just you wait until it's reduced à sec.
What did you call me?
It's French, Your Honor, for almost dry. By the way, you always want to do this in a stainless steel or other non-reactive vessel.
Of course, yes.
Glad you got that. All right, Your Honor. Once the liquid's reduced to a couple of tablespoons, it's time to take out some emulsion insurance. A tablespoon of cream.
I thought this trial was about butter.
The cream's emulsifiers will help to get the sauce going. Now, as soon as it bubbles, reduce the heat to low. Now comes the magic.
It's about time.
Okay, you'll need 6 ounces, that's 12 tablespoons, or a stick and a half of cold unsalted butter, cut into chunks. Now, add the chunks one at a time, whisking first on, then off the heat.
Off the heat? You call that cooking?
Look, if the sauce goes beyond 130 degrees, the membrane surrounding the fat globules will collapse, leaving you with an oil slick. Adding cold butter and working on and off the heat will prevent that.
Fine. Now, why all this whisking?
Well, as the butter melts, the whisk smashes the fat into little globules, basically turning the butter back into cream. That is, fat droplets dispersed in water. Only our water is super saturated with flavor.
I see.
Okay, as soon as the previous chunks are almost gone, return the pan to the heat and add more butter. Now, I use about a stick of butter per tablespoon of reduction, but you can change that to your taste.
Counselor, even I know you can't play footloose and fancy-free with sauce making.
Well, you can with this one, because as the butter melts, its own water and emulsifiers join the party. Now, as soon as the butter's all in, season with salt and white pepper.
Either serve it chunky or strain, and just spoon over, say, piece of poached salmon, maybe. Of course, that's, a lot of other options. You could serve it over eggs, asparagus, any place where a creamy texture and a little bit of tang would be welcomed. Oh, and of course, if you're not going to serve it right away, get it off the heat and into a thermos. Enjoy.
Delicious.
Thank you.
This court finds you in contempt.
Contempt? For what?
Endangering my health with butter. Everyone knows that margarine is better for your health.
Oh, is that so? Well, I call my next witness. Yes, Dr. Johnson, is it? How would you characterize your profession's past attitude towards my client?
Really, really mean.
Really mean. Really. And did you, through a majority of the 20th century, advocate the use of margarine?
Oh, yeah.
I see. What about now?
Well,
Answer the question, Doctor.
well, it turns out that margarine contains stuff.
Stuff. Exactly what kind of stuff?
Trans fatty acids.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Trans fatty acids.
Trans fatty acids. I see. Now, would you characterize these trans fatty acids as particularly healthful?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, I see. So, can you still say then that margarine's better for you than butter?
Remember, Doctor, you're under oath.
No, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. Thank you, Doctor. You may return to the golf course.
Good argument, Counselor.
Yes.
But you know, I really love those tub spreads with the different flavors in them.
That's kind of sad, but hold on to your wig and wait for my closing argument.
Compound butter's as multi-use as sauce gets. Now start by cubing a pound, that's 4 sticks of salted butter, and set it aside to soften. Next, grab your food processor and pour in 3 to 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil.
Olive oil? But what happened to the butter?
Relax, it's just for flavor.
What's your tone?
Now, here come the chives. 2 tablespoons to be exact. Now, since they're pretty stemmy, go ahead and give them a spin
In the car?
in the food processor.
Of course.
Now, follow this with 3 tablespoons of assorted fresh herbs. I like thyme, rosemary, and sage.
I just love that song.
That's nice. Okay, process until the oil turns green.
Now, what if I don't have a processor?
Well, just mince the herbs as fine as you can. Let them steep in the oil for an hour or so. Now, here comes the butter.
It's about time.
Now, if your mixer has a whip attachment, use it. If not, well, go with the paddle or the beater. It'll just take a little longer. Now, add the butter and beat on low just to get things loose, and throttle up to high until the butter lightens in color and increases slightly in volume, say 5 to 7 minutes.
Why does it increase in volume?
Because it's full of air.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, because it's easier to introduce ingredients into something light and fluffy than it is into something hard and dense. Also, whipped butter will spread easily right out of the fridge and melt quickly on, say, well, Parker House rolls.
Ah, my favorite.
Oh, great, but that's another show.
Please continue with your argument, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, when the butter's light and fluffy, it's time to add the oil, okay? Then just whip it long enough to fully incorporate it into the butter. Now, if you see any melted butter in the bottom of the bowl, you have overachieved. So put the bowl and the whisk in the freezer for a couple of minutes and start again. Oh, here comes the cool part.
And this had better not be one of your red herrings.
No, Your Honor, but well, actually, this would be good on hearing. Anyway, just scoop the butter out into a mound on the end of a sheet of parchment or wax paper, okay? Then what you want to do is grab the far end of the paper and fold it over the mound, like that. You got that? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Then take a baking sheet or a cookie sheet, push it over the paper, hold the bottom paper, and push the pan out into a tube. See?
Very clever indeed.
Now, thank you, Your Honor. Now, just roll it up, pop a rubber band on either end, and refrigerate. Or you could wrap it in a layer of foil and freeze it for up to 2 months. The foil will foil those funky freezer flavors.
Give it a few hours to set, then just slice off medallions and sauce anything.
Anything?
Anything.
Filet mignon?
You want filet mignon?
Yes.
Have some filet mignon.
Chicken?
Absolutely, we can do chicken.
Can you do fish?
We can do fish. Actually, fish and butter are great pals.
What about buttering a roll?
Well, of course you want some buttered rolls.
What if I want something sweet?
Well, if you want something sweet, I've got it. But I do suggest that you whip the butter just as before. Then drizzle in about 1/4 cup of good honey, along with, say, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Of course, the possibilities are endless. For instance, sun-dried tomato and thyme butter will take pasta places it never dreamed. Dried mushrooms soaked in cognac with chives, great for sautéed mushrooms. Of course, minced garlic and crushed olives are a favorite of mine on grilled fish. Then, of course, there's salmon and dill butter, which is good on just about everything else.
delicious. Summation.
Ladies and gentlemen, butter is good. Butter works. If we buy it fresh, handle it correctly, pay attention to its needs, it will reward us with good eats aplenty.
Case dismissed.